Welcome to ENG4E. This is class 27. We are looking at assignments K34, which is letters with style, and K35, memos with character. It is Thursday the 4th, April 2024. I am Julian Percy, and here is all our contact information. Sorry, PowerPoint's always a little bit slow at first. Okay. Facebook and YouTube both have the same address, capital G, capital P, ERCY, space, capital W, AHSA. If you have a question about an assignment, you can reach me at jillian.percy@nnecschools.org. If you want to talk to me while I'm on air, 1-800-465-7144. The previous recordings are saved on Facebook. There is a playlist that says ENG4E, so all the previous assignments are already listed there, and I will keep on posting them until this class is done, which I think we've got about a week and a half more, and then we'll be finished. Any assignments always include your name, the course number, the assignment number and name, and if there's any kind of a rough or a good copy, please label them and include both of them at the same time. They often have a different marking scheme or may be worth different marks, and I look for whether you've done revision and editing between the two, so I kind of need them both at the same time in order to give an appropriate grade, okay? Today's work, we are going to review block and modified block letter format. Think about how to write letters to respond to various business scenarios, understand the different parts of a business letter, apply our understanding by actually writing letters as part of our assignments, understand the structure of a memo, apply our understanding of memo format to write memos of our own based on business scenarios that we create. Okay, so up until now we've been looking at other people's writing and answering questions. Now we're kind of moving into the section of the unit where we're going to be applying our understanding of those formats to create our own versions of those types of communications. So you'll now have the opportunity to plan and create samples of the various forms of written communication examined earlier and today. You will be expected to apply your acquired knowledge and understanding of these forms along with the essentials for effective writing to produce quality communications, which is an important objective of this course. Okay, visual aids. You'll be able to work with visual aids, like graphics in other words, and incorporate them into your samples, particularly when you do a report, which is coming up. Also, you will focus attention on the importance of oral communication with some practical application. You will practice leaving a voicemail message on a telephone. That's one of the other assignments coming up. Hopefully there will have been some good on-air discussion during classes, as well as by this time along with some general telephone contact. Upon completion of this Unit 3 material, you will have demonstrated some good communication skills, both written and oral, and you should have a measure of confidence to apply those skills in a workplace if required. Please keep in mind once again that good grammar and punctuation are key to successful written communication, regardless of your format, letter, email, etc., and it will be necessary to continue to pay close attention to this element of your writing. Marks will otherwise be lost should you not exercise care when writing your sentences and paragraphs. Using visual aids. PowerPoint is a really commonplace multimedia presentation that has proven itself to be an effective way of reaching any audience for a specific purpose. When done properly, a PowerPoint presentation certainly has its benefits. Examples of visual aids include charts or graphs, diagrams, clip arts, and photos. Hopefully you'll have a better understanding of the value of using visual aids to convey messages. So just pointing out, I use PowerPoint to create this course. It has all sorts of benefits. You can see up top there's all sorts of different tabs, things you can insert, drawing tools, different designs, transitions, animations, all sorts of interesting stuff. Now, not everybody has PowerPoint, but remember that if you are a student here, then you have access to Google, and Google has a very similar program called Google Slides. It's not exactly the same, but if you've used PowerPoint at all, you should very easily be able to understand how to use PowerPoint. When we get to that part of the assignments, I will show you guys some different specific things that you may want to do. In the meantime, if you've got some spare time and you want to just kind of fool around and play with it so you get a better understanding of how the programs work, by all means pick one that you think you're going to want to use and kind of play around with it a little bit. Okay, examples of visual aids. You most likely had the opportunity to work with visual aids already in high school, and therefore should have some understanding of them. For example, in a math course, you may have done some work with graphing, line graphs, bar graphs, and pie or circle graphs. If you've completed a course in geography, you will have seen and used graphs as well. Also, maps and diagrams, incidentally, are also a type of visual aid that are commonly used in a geography course. Perhaps you've heard or have seen in print the expression, a picture is worth 1,000 words. And it really depends, right? Some things I think can be explained very well with words and sentences, but other things really are going to need a visual so you can understand what needs to be done. Okay, visual aids emphasize points of importance. So every kind of print resource, textbooks, magazines, newspapers, brochures, manuals, and even reports will contain pictures either in color or in black and white. They interest all of us as readers, no matter what we're reading, and they serve also to aid in our understanding of printed material. The other visual aids mentioned above are commonly used to varying degrees to illustrate points of importance in these resources. A workplace audience is usually very busy, and therefore adding meaning through visual aids can only be a positive thing. It captures people's attention, but it also can explain complicated concepts in a very concise way. So they really are helpful. They're not just decoration, I guess. So here's an example of a graphic that was used as a point of emphasis. This was published in the front page New York Times article called See How 2023 Shattered Records to Become the Hottest Year. That was on January 9th, 2024, only a few months ago. The European Union's I'm going to say this wrong, Copernicus Climate Change Service found that the global temperature in 2023 was about 1.48 degrees Celsius higher, that would be 2.67 degrees Fahrenheit, than the second half of the 19th century. Okay? NASA, which is the space program, found that the global temperature in 2023 was about 1.37 degrees higher, or 2.47 degrees Fahrenheit, higher than pre-industrial levels. So in other words, pre-industrial would mean before factories existed. So at that point you're talking about like early 1800s maybe. While NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, found that the increase was 1.34 degrees Celsius or 2.41 degrees Fahrenheit. So different climate measuring organizations around the world all agree that it's gone up. There's a mild difference in how much, like 1.37 and 1.34 is pretty similar. So sometimes scientists differ or disagree on how to calculate the rise in temperatures, but they all agree that 2023 was the warmest year on record by a wide margin. Is this increase in temperatures part of a continuing upward trend? And if so, will it accelerate? So obviously, an article that's about how things are hottest year and comparing things really lends itself to a graph. So here they've done a really interesting kind of graph, I thought. Line graphs that record different highs and lows. And this particular one is so busy that it's almost impossible to see. This is the 1940s to the 60s, but you can see up top the highest part and then down here the lowest part. Then this section that's a little less busy is the 1970s. Then we have the 1980s, and you can see there's a big jump there between the 1970s and the 1980s. I don't know why it's such a big jump, but it really is. And then you've got 1990s, another big jump. 2000s, another big jump. 2010s, it really kind of, one of the highs really went up. And then 2020s, it's one of those things of, it's in some parts it's stayed the same, in some parts it's really jumped up. So that kind of gives you a visual of how much of a change you've seen. Down here at the bottom at the 0 line is actually, it's not actually 0 like as in the temperature. That is average temperature for 1850 to 1900. So they're using that average temperature as their 0 line. That's why it's kind of important to read the graphs, not just assume 0 means 0. So here they're measuring how much it's going up by 0.2 of a degree. All right. By hand or by computer. Visual aids, such as charts or graphs, can be found in almost every type of printed material. They are useful tools because they present complex information in a simple format. Instead of reading a lot of text, you get an instant information snapshot. Visual aids, however, such as charts or graphs, are effective only if you can understand the information provided. So that's what we were just talking about, how just looking at it could give you a misleading understanding if you didn't also read the labels, the titles, and look at the numbers to understand what's actually going on. When it comes to producing a document that you wish to include a chart or a graph in, you have the option of doing so by hand using a ruler and pencils or pens, or you can use WordPerfect or Microsoft Word. Google Slides has it as well. I'm sure Mac does too. On a computer at your learning center to create and insert charts or graphs. A chart as a visual aid displays any kind of information using lines to separate the information into sections. Okay, so here's an example of a sample hand-drawn circle graph, which I kind of like it because they did it sort of like a wheel format rather than a filled-in pie format. They haven't given it an actual title, they've just kind of given you the idea. And you know, while I wouldn't have thought that this would be in high demand for business formats, I actually found a bunch of different software that will turn kind of the more official looking bar graph into one that looks hand-drawn. So there must be some sort of market for that where people really enjoy that look. Here is a sample graph that they've really cleverly put next to a shoe, and it's talking about how high heels different women like to wear. So up top, at 5 inches, 21% of women will wear a 5-inch heel, 34% of women will wear a 4-inch heel, 45% of women will wear a 3-inch heel. I wonder if there's a line for 0-inch heel, because I gotta admit I hate heels. And up here, I'm wondering if this is actually meant to be a scale, because up here this is the 6, and this looks like it's a 7-inch heel, which looks insanely uncomfortable to me. But anyways, so this is a version of a hand-drawn versus a computer-created graph. Okay, sometimes you'll hear the word chart, sometimes you'll hear the word graph, but they actually mean the same thing. They both present information, numbers and words, in columns and rows so that viewers can interpret the information quickly and make comparisons. Graphs and tables are actually just a different type of chart, and you'll often see these words used instead of chart, basically as like a synonym. So for example, a bar chart and a bar graph are exactly the same thing. Graphs are unique in the sense that they show comparisons, ratios, and they can show trends over time. So here is a sample graph that's actually included in your unit. Here it's talking about sales in millions of dollars, although it conveniently doesn't tell us what's being sold. And then in the years 1995 versus 1996, 1997, 98, 99, 2000, and they've gone from selling slightly more than 2 million to selling closer to 3 million, maybe 2.8 million. And then over here, days of the week, sales. I don't know if this is supposed to be the same company, but the different days of the week and how much sales they make. I'm kind of surprised by this Sunday. So many stores are closed on Sunday. I'd be surprised they're making, that's one of their highest sales days. But anyways, they're measuring it in intervals of $5,000. Also, we've got diagrams. A diagram essentially consists of a sketch representation of an item along with printed information to explain or clarify different aspects of the item. Diagrams are always labeled, and it's a very commonly used feature of technical writing. Here, it doesn't actually tell you what this machine is, but you've got the longitudinal travel, the cross traverse, fine adjustment, coarse adjustment, electrical controls. Here's the table. There's the coolant. There's the wheel. Looks like some sort of saw. Wheel head and an extractor. Okay. Russian submarine Kursk. On August 12, 2000, the Russian submarine Kursk sank to the bottom of the Bering Sea. Maclean's magazine used the above diagram to help its readers understand a complex situation. So here's kind of a rough illustration of the Russian submarine. Number 1 says, the explosion that is believed to have taken the Kursk to the bottom may have occurred in the submarine's torpedo bay. So it sounds like they think maybe one of the torpedoes went off. 2, most sailors would have been in the bridge and living quarters, which are believed to have been destroyed. And that would be in this section, obviously, unfortunately, quite close to the torpedo bay. 3, both of the Kursk's nuclear reactors shut down automatically following the accident, leaving its giant motors without power as the vessel sank. I presume that's probably a safety measure. And then 4, sailors on the British LR5 mini-submarine had hoped to create a seal around the rear hatch in order to allow them to board. Unfortunately, it just sounds like it didn't happen. I didn't remember reading about this, but this is kind of a diagram trying to illustrate the concept. Visual aids also have impact. So here's a little cartoon drawn by Ted Goff. And up here is the speaker looking sort of horrified. Here is a giant ball. I don't know what it's supposed to be. But anyways, underneath is apparently the CEO. And the caption says, "It's okay. The CEO is conscious again. And he says he'll never forget your visual aid." So hopefully our visual aids aren't quite so deadly. All right, activity 2, presenting workplace communication, 70 marks. This activity will allow you the opportunity to further demonstrate your knowledge and understanding of forms by creating samples of your own. You'll be expected to produce the following items of communication: 2 letters, 2 memos, and 1 report. So they're kind of bouncing back and forth. I'm kind of doing it in the order that it's written, but it honestly seems like it's kind of all over the place. I apologize. This little section here is talking about oral communication, which isn't in today's assignments, but it is coming up. Good oral communication is important in any workplace, as mentioned during the course thus far, and it's absolutely necessary for you to be aware of this. You've been encouraged to participate on air during the course, as well as having telephone contact with your teacher, initiated by both yourselves and your teacher. In the final assignment of this activity, you'll be calling your teacher in Sioux Lookout, that's me, and leaving voicemail messages. For your written correspondence with your final report, you're going to be encouraged to insert suitable visual aids, including tables, graphs, photos, clip arts, or diagrams. Okay, so now we are moving on to today's question. Today's question is number 34. It's called Letters with Style, and it is worth 20 marks. You are to examine the following scenarios and write a letter for each scenario in response. Your first letter for scenario number 1 is going to be created using the block format, which I'll show you again. Everything is always lined up on the left-hand margin when you use the block format. The second letter for scenario number 2 is going to be created in the modified block format. For that, the inside address, the date, and the closing is placed 1/2 to 2/3 of the way across the page, so close to the right, and it's lined up vertically with each other. The rest of the letter is lined up with the left-hand format, just like the block format style above. Okay, so here is scenario number 1. You are graduating from high school this year, and you're hoping to attend Confederation College in Sioux Lookout next September. You are interested in the 1-year office administration program offered. You are to write a letter to Ms. Angelina Anderson, campus director, at 100 Casimir Avenue, Dryden, P893L4, requesting information about the program. In your letter, you are to mention that you will be graduating from high school this year, and you would eventually like a job working in an office environment. You see the office administration program meeting your needs. You will need to know what kind of overall average will be needed in your courses this year to allow you to enroll, and the sorts of courses you can expect to be taking if accepted into the program at Confederation College. Finally, you will need to know what this program will cost over the 1 year and whether or not the college assists students in finding suitable accommodations, which means housing. Be sure to thank Ms. Anderson for her time. Okay, so here is a quick review of block format, and you can see it's all lined up by a margin on the left-hand side, typically you have like about a 1-inch margin here. You've got the date, you've got who you were sending it to, her name, her address. This way too, right, if it's gone to the wrong person or if somebody's been fired, they can kind of redirect it to the right person. If you didn't kind of give that information, you wouldn't necessarily be able to get it to the right person. Dear Mary, this is an example of the full block format for letter writing. As you'll notice, everything is aligned to the left margin. It is a very simple format. The paragraphs are not indented. You know how in novels you'll sometimes see a little indent of 5 spaces? Instead, you can see they leave a space between the paragraphs. I think it's actually 2 spaces. You can see the spacing of the letter as well. There are 4 lines between the date and the address. I don't know if it's 4 lines, it looks more like 2, but okay. 2 spaces between the address and the salutation. So address and the salutation, that's the greeting. And also 2 spaces between the salutation and the body of the letter. There are also 2 spaces between each paragraph. Then again, there are 2 spaces between the body and the closing line. And then there are 4 spaces between the closing line and the signature line. Normally in this space you would handwrite your actual name in there, not just type it. It's considered a bit rude to only include the typing. It also kind of verifies that it's actually you. So if somebody else, wrote a letter in your name and then did a terrible job of forging your signature, you would kind of have some proof that, hey, this didn't come from me. In each paragraph, the first sentence shares the main point. The rest of the paragraph expands on the main point. Attempt to keep each paragraph to 3 or 4 sentences. It is best if the letter is short enough to fit onto 1 page. Sincerely, Tamiria Horst, Women's Ministries Director. Okay, so this is business letter. Remember that you're writing a letter here that is requesting information. Remember that the main point of a business letter is usually mentioned in the very first sentence to be sure that the purpose is conveyed right away. Paragraphs in a business letter should only have a few sentences to make them easy to understand. You don't need to follow the typical paragraph structure that we use in academic writing. You don't need to have an opening sentence and you don't need to have a closing sentence. It's more like, hey, here's my main idea, here's some details that fill it in, okay? Here's my next main idea, here's some details. So you don't really need the same kind of format that you need in an academic paragraph. Things to think about. In this scenario, when they mention you will need to know, that means you have to ask a question or a few questions about that topic. And you need to make sure that you list every topic the scenario says that you need to mention. You also need to make sure that you ask questions on every topic that they say you need to. You can also add some items to mention or questions to ask if you want to. If you've got room and you want to add some things, that's fine. Be aware of your audience and how you want them to view you, right? How does your audience and your purpose affect your tone, okay? So you're not going to be overly casual. This isn't a friend you're writing to. This is somebody who is an authority at the school that you're trying to get into, so you want to sound like you belong there, basically. Is this letter a formal or an informal letter, and how would that change how you write? So an informal letter would be something that you're writing to a friend or to a colleague. A formal letter is when you're writing to someone you don't know, especially in this case because you are asking her to do some work for you. You're definitely going to want to use a formal style. So looking back here, you are interested in the 1-year office administration program offered. You're going to have to tell them that, right? You need to know what kind of overall average, so you're going to have to ask her. So what kind of overall average do you need? Blah, blah, blah. So that phrase, you need to know, that means you've got to ask them a question, okay? All right, let's look at scenario number 2. Scenario number 2 says, you have worked at your local northern store for several years, and you've recently been promoted by the company to the position of manager. The former manager was retiring and needed to be replaced. You have been thankful for this opportunity and have been doing your very best to satisfy both your employees and your customers. A few days ago, however, you were in a really bad mood because of something that had happened away from work. Unfortunately, you've taken some frustration and anger out on a customer by the name of Mary Weary. she had accidentally bumped into you while coming around a corner, and even though she said she was sorry, you got upset with her. Mary was shocked by your reaction and said she probably would not be back shopping at the store for a while. She had decided to tell her family and friends about the incident. You are to write a letter of apology to Mary to say you are sorry for your words and behavior and to encourage her to return and shop as she always has. You are even willing to allow her a free shopping spree to a value of $150. Now, remember that this second scenario, you're going to write in the modified block format instead. So modified block format, okay, so they've put theirs, this is how I would see it too. The your name, your address would all go here. I don't know why it says current date here. The date would come kind of right down here, either right smack dab in the center or about 2/3 over, okay? Then you would have all your other part, the recipient who you're sending it to, their address, the greeting, the subject line, the different body paragraphs, those would all be lined up to the left-hand margin. Then your closing, sincerely, and your name would go back to either the center if you use the center, or kind of 2/3 of the way over if you use 2/3 of the way over. And then here they've got reference initials. I don't think you need that. Enclosure. Back when we used paper, if you included something else in the envelope, you always listed it so that they knew that there was something else to look for. CC means carbon copied, which, gosh, we don't even use carbon copies anymore. But basically it means that you also sent a copy to Mr. Billy Banks. Now, I want to kind of I'm just going to check something because they phrased something one way, and I want to make sure I've got this correct. Hang on. Okay. The inside address, the date, and the closing will be placed 1/2 to 2/3 of the way across the page to the right. Okay. So this is how I've seen the modified block, but what they want is for this to all kind of line up right there. I would put it 2/3 of the way over. Right now it's right in the center. 2/3 of the way over, kind of around there. If you're looking at an 8.5 page across, it's not quite 6 inches, but you could definitely use about 6 inches over and set up kind of a margin there and have that work that way. Okay, some things to think about. This is meant to be a letter of apology. That is your overall purpose for this letter. It's kind of also a letter of persuasion and of goodwill. You're trying to change this customer's opinion of yourself and of the store. And your goal is that you're trying to get her to come back to the store as a customer. You're also hoping that this will change her attitude towards you in the store so that she stops bad-mouthing the company to friends and family, which could be causing the store to lose even more customers. How will your purpose and your audience affect your tone and your style of writing? What are some phrases you could say to show your regret for your actions? So although this is formal, it might have a little bit more informal tone, but it's not going to sound casual, right? And your audience is this lady, elderly lady, who's upset with you. So that's going to affect your tone and how you're going to write to her, right? I kind of picked up a sample apology letter, just kind of the format to give you some ideas for how to write this. So again, salutation or greeting, dear Mr., Mrs., Ms. If you're not sure which one they go by, it's always safe to just use their name, Dear Mary Weary. Apologize and give a detailed account of the situation. Please accept my sincere apology on behalf of our company. I am very sorry to learn. Now, in this case, you are the one that did it, so you're apologizing, so you didn't learn about it, so I wouldn't use that particular phrase, but I'm very sorry that this incident occurred. To learn that your experience with Jane, our customer service representative, was less than adequate. You know, I should have handled the situation differently. Acknowledge the hurt and the damage that was done. I understand your frustration at having made a simple request to speak with a supervisor, someone who had the authority to fix the problem at hand, We let you down in that regard, and for that I am also sorry. Okay, so what hurt and damage did you do to Mary Weary? How do you think she felt when the manager got mad at her for accidentally bumping into them? Okay, take full responsibility and make it very clear that your side was at fault, right? You don't want to put any blame on the customer. You should have been more careful. We take full responsibility for the situation and understand why Jane's offer to remedy the situation did not meet your expectations. Our customer service representatives are given a set of guidelines for compensation that they are supposed to adhere to. However, in this case, clearly those standards were insufficient. Okay, so this guy, again, he's not apologizing for anyone else. He's apologizing for his own behavior. So he needs to talk about it in a way that doesn't sound like he's trying to make excuses for himself, right? You don't want to go into like a long explanation of why you were having a bad day, because in all honesty, your customer probably doesn't care that much. You just kind of maybe need to explain, I'm sorry that I let my bad day influence my behavior, blah, blah, blah. Recognize that your role in the situation with a detailed account of what happened, again, without making excuses. How they phrased it was, in this regard, we failed. We should have trained our staff so they understood that under certain circumstances, they should immediately connect a customer with a supervisor who had the authority to override the standard guidelines and procedures. So in other words, in this case, the customer service person did what she was trained to do, right? She followed everything, but the company didn't anticipate a customer asking to speak to a manager right away. And so because of that, she didn't have procedures in place to follow that. And it obviously has caused some sort of upset with this particular customer. Then you want to kind of wind up your letter looking to the future, right? You're not just apologizing for the past. You're trying to explain, hey, here's how I'm going to change things coming up. So promise that it won't happen again, and tell the customer why it's important to you that it doesn't. Obviously, not just because we want your business, but why do you feel bad about what happened and how that made your customer feel? Please be assured that this type of situation will never happen again. We have put new procedures in place as of today that will ensure that any customer who wants to speak with someone more senior for any reason will be transferred immediately. It's very important to us that our customers have access to anyone within the company, all the way up to senior management. Now, I got to be honest, I would be really surprised if that were the case in any actual company, because most cases that's the reason why they have clerks, is because they don't want to have people accessing it. But we're going to pretend that this company is amazing, I guess. Include a statement of regret. Regret is a little bit different than apologizing. Apologizing is the part where you're talking about you're sorry, but regret is like your feelings about the situation. I regret that we provided you with bad service and a poor customer experience. It is the exact opposite of what we pride ourselves on. We value our customers and understand how important it is to offer exceptional service. Provide some form of restitution and a way of easing the pain caused. This goes back to where you're offering the $150 shopping spree, right? Oh, yeah. We have issued a full credit on your account and a coupon for 30% off of your next order as a gesture of our gratitude. We very much appreciate your business, and we hope that you will remain a valued customer. Now, I want to point out how clever this is. The 30% off the next order means the person's going to have to come into the store to spend that. So A, you're kind of giving her a reason to come into the store. You're actually also creating business for yourself. Same thing with the $150 spree, right? Maybe you're not creating business for yourself, but it's not uncommon for people to spend more than the spree and just be like, well, because I've got 150, I can afford to spend $50 over to buy this new bike or whatever. But also, you've brought them back into the store, which might be the hard part for a customer that's stomped out angrily. They've come into the store, you've made it up to them, they may be feeling a little bit better, and you kind of eased their way to continuing to have them as a customer in that sense. Okay, then you want to wrap up and close the letter, end by thanking them and showing a willingness to do whatever is necessary to retain them as a customer. I would like to thank you for bringing this to our attention. It will help us improve our operations and services. If there are any other issues that need to be addressed now or in the future, please don't hesitate to contact me personally by phone, email, or in person. Sincerely. Now, this is a pretty long letter. I don't think yours would need to be this long. Try to keep it to one page. But it's trying to get the format of the different types of attitudes and statements that you need to make in a formal apology letter. Okay, you are to write a rough copy and revise and edit it. However, you only need to give me the final copy. I don't need to see the rough copy in this case. I would prefer if you use a computer if you have access to one. However, if you are handwriting, that is fine. Just please make sure it's done really neatly and press hard. If you can use a pen instead of a pencil, that would be great, especially like a black or a blue pen, because that holds up really well to the scanning process. There's going to be 10 marks for each letter. Okay, moving on to the next one, key question number 35. Memos with character. This is also going to be worth 20 marks. Memos are very similar to letters. A lot of times, if you think about a typical email, it's kind of very similar to a memo format. So here is your scenario. Assume that you're working in any position in your home community. You are to produce a memo in 2 different styles. I'm not quite sure when they say 2 different styles. I'm going to assume they meant 2 different memos, okay? To an audience within your workplace. If you're not actually working somewhere in your community at present, choose an employer of interest to you. For example, the band office, the school, community store, nursing station. Your message must be workplace related, but can be about any aspect of your work. Your audience can be any of the following: your coworkers, your supervisor or your manager, the maintenance person or the caretaker, and you can make up names if you wish. You don't have to use real people. Use the proper memo format as outlined earlier. I'm going to show it to you again. And your message is to have at least 6 sentences. That doesn't count like the address line and the subject line. That's after that 6 sentences. You'll need to write a rough copy of your memo and then revise and edit it as needed. So here's typical memo format. There's usually something up top that says memo or the full word memorandum. Then to, who's it to? And to could be like a group of people. Like it could be all office staff or all caretaking staff. From Lori Hopeful or whatever your name is, give it the date and then give a brief subject. And then here is where your 6 sentences would be. So you want to have 6 sentences explaining things there. Okay. So that's the format you're following. You can write about anything you want to, but it's such a wide open thing. I find sometimes students have a hard time thinking of topics when it's that wide open. So here are some ideas to get you started. It could be regarding a customer complaint. It could be that you're announcing a workplace procedural change. Maybe you're announcing a new job position or welcoming a new employee. Maybe you're announcing a new program that you guys are going to be putting out, or announcing some upcoming professional development or training. Maybe you're going to give them information on an upcoming hiring fair that people are going to be attending. Maybe a memo regarding how to handle customer complaints in the future. An upcoming staff meeting on an important topic. Maybe a change in dress code, a change in computer or device policies, right? A lot of companies have policies about when and where and what you can do with your devices and your computers at work. Maybe they're announcing an upcoming fundraising event or some sort of community service event. Each memo is going to be worth 10 marks. So 2 different memos, 2 different topics. They can be written to the same audience or to 2 different audiences. And remember, your audience can be your coworkers, your supervisor, manager, the maintenance person or caretaker. I would also say it can be if you're the boss, the people underneath you. That would be pretty typical. I'm going to say kind of your employees, because that makes the most sense to me. And again, you can make up the names if you wish to. So here's a sample memo. This one is about congratulations, and it also happily announces bonus checks. Okay, memorandum to GTS sales staff from Karen Moore, CC, Mr. John Sakazaki, date April 18th, 2008, subject customer presentation. The JSKL marketing presentation you prepared last week to showcase our new product line was exceptional. Your enthusiasm, sales strategy, and product knowledge were impressive and certainly sealed the deal with Mr. Lockhart. Thank you for your outstanding work and dedication. Bonus checks will be distributed next week. My sincere congratulations to all of you. Okay, that would be a lovely memo to get, wouldn't it? Here is a memo about an upcoming training day. Date, March 3rd, 2021, to all employees in the Customer Service Department, from Lauren Avery, Human Resources Manager. Subject, upcoming training day, March 10th, 2021. I am writing to inform you that there's an upcoming training day for all employees to learn how to use the new POS system, point of sale system. The new system should help us work more efficiently and speed up transaction times. The training will take place from 10 o'clock a.m. to 3 o'clock p.m. on March 10th. You'll have a 1-hour break in between. The company will provide lunch. This training is mandatory for every member of the Customer Service Department. Please let us know if you have any questions or concerns. Thank you, Lauren Avery, lauren.avery@email.com. Okay, so here is kind of a rough outline for any kind of basic memo. Date, remember it can be one employee or a department in your company or the entire company. From, you give your name and any official business title. So if you're the CEO, you would say that. There may be some new people that don't know it, or you're the human resource director or the office manager, whatever your job title is. And then a few words about the subject of the memo. You're not giving everything away, but you're just kind of giving them a heads up what it's about. A brief paragraph discussing the main reason for the memo. 1 or 2 body paragraphs about the details of the update or the news or any actions you want your employees, colleagues, or supervisors to take, right? So on this one about the training day, maybe they wanted you to let them know if you'll be able to attend. If you are unable to attend, please discuss that with us, right? So a lot of times a memo will have an action that people need to take on. Then include a closing or a sign-off, so just thank you, then your name, and then any contact information. Okay, writing tips for a memo. Write a detailed subject line. To ensure your readers know exactly what to expect from the memo, write a detailed subject line. The subject line can tell your audience how important the message is and give them guidance on where to file it in their email folders. For example, you might write, Jane Smith's retirement party, or office maintenance on July 3rd. Number 2, list the purpose in the introduction. After the subject line, the introduction is the first thing your readers will see in the memo. It's important to list the purpose of the memo within the first few lines to tell your team members why you're writing the document and what information they can find in the memo. You can start with an introductory statement such as, I'm writing to inform you, to introduce your purpose. That's if your informing is your purpose. Okay. Include details in the body paragraphs. After the introduction, you can discuss the details of your message in the body paragraphs, which is going to vary depending on your topic. So for example, if you're throwing an event, the body paragraph should include details such as the reason for the event, the time, the date, the dress code. Is it casual? Is it business casual, business formal? Be sure to think of questions your employees may have about the message you're trying to get across and answer them in the memo ahead of time, right? Rather than having, 10 employees message you saying, but what about blah, 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 anticipate that and include it in your memo. End your body paragraphs with any requests you have, such as, please RSVP by June 26th, or please mark this training date in your calendars. And then number 4 is their closing. You can end the letter by thanking the reader, signing your name, leave your contact information, such as your email or your phone if you don't mind phone calls, in case the reader has any questions. You don't want to leave them no way to call you, because if there's any kind of confusion or conflict, if you don't leave contact information, they may not know what the information is, or they may feel like that was a subtle hint that you don't want any feedback on this, okay? As you're writing, try to be aware of your tone, right? While you're writing your memo, you want to be concise and positive. Remember, concise is that you're as brief as possible while still getting across all the important details. So staying concise can help you get your message across clearly. So consider reviewing your memo to ensure you're including only essential information. You also would obviously want to make sure it's correct information. If the date of the meeting has changed and you forgot to mention that, someone else might get confused, or the place has mentioned it was supposed to be at the back office and now it's going to be at the main office downtown or whatever. Also, review your memo to check for positive language. This is true even if you are feeling upset and are wanting to make some changes. So let's say a customer has made some sort of complaint, they've caused a big fuss, and because of this, you guys at the top have decided to change how you handle certain customers. Okay. You don't want to blame your staff for this situation. You want to still convey, hey, because we want to make sure that we are the best at customer service, here are the new changes we've made. Please let us know, how it goes, la, la, la. You don't want to create a memo that has any atmosphere of blame, anger, negativity, because it's really going to cloud your message and it reduces the chance that people are actually going to do what you asked them to do, right? A letter sticks around forever. That could easily be shown to your boss, future employees, whatever, and leave a very bad taste in people's mouths, right? Try to be as positive as possible, or at the very least neutral. Keep in mind that memos are really for a general purpose. You're not going to use a memo to fire someone, for example. And if you had like one person who annoyed a customer, you probably wouldn't write a memo to them. You would probably go and speak to them directly. If it was a really serious thing, maybe you would write up a formal letter of complaint and show it to them. But a memo is more informational, so it wouldn't be used in those kind of difficult situations. It's too formal and it's too stiff to handle the nuance of a difficult situation, okay? So just kind of quick review. 2 letters, one in block format, one in modified block format, and you have to follow the exact scenarios that are outlined. Make sure to remember that you're both asking questions and giving information in the first scenario. Then you're also going to write 2 memos about 2 different work situations. It can go to 2 completely different sets of people. Both of these should be sure to have good punctuation, good capitalization, good paragraphing, and again, like all business communications, concise. You're not going to be super flowery. You're not going to be worrying about a whole bunch of pretty adjectives or adverbs. It's really, business writing is functional. It is concise. It is verb oriented. It is just kind of telling, here is what we want. Here is what's going to change. Okay. If you're having any kind of difficulties with this assignment, by all means, reach out to me. I'd be happy to help you with it. Today is Thursday, so this is the last class for this week. And then next week, I think we've got 4 more classes. I think I've got a few more classes I got to catch up on. Okay, so about that, and then we'll be done. I hope you're doing well with the assignments. Like I said, if you have any trouble, please contact me. Have a good weekend.